What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Sixers Digest YouTube channel. My name is Sean Barnard, and today I'm here with some breaking news in the Sixers world that the Sixers have made a signing that Kelly Oubre Jr. will be signing a one-year deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. It has been a while since we waited on some news in the Sixers world. The James Harden the uncertainty still swings, but it is nice to have a little concrete move to break down for you guys. So I'm here to dive in what that means for the Sixers, the type of impact he can bring, and the overall expectations for Oubre this year. But before I dive fully into it, I would like to remind you guys to make sure you are subscribed to the channel. 93% of you guys watching the video have not subscribed yet, so I want to make sure that's changed. We got some big plans coming up for Sixers season. I want you guys as involved as possible. Been awesome putting out all this content so far, but we're only getting started. The season is right around the corner, and Kelly Oubre Jr. is now going to be a part of the Sixers journey. So for starters, it is going to be a veterans minimum contract, so nice to see the Sixers still have their full MLE intact. That was reported by Barnard there. So Oubre, kind of wild value to be getting a guy who scored 20 points per game last year at a veterans minimum. This also puts the Sixers roster a little bit tight there. There will be 14 guaranteed contracts, one partially non-guaranteed, which is Danny Green there, 2 Exhibit 10 contracts, and 3 two-way deals. All 3 two-way deals, which is Terquavion Smith, Ricky Council IV, and Azuolas Tubelis will count on roster. That those are this year they upgraded to allow 3 two-way slots rather than the previously 2 in years past. So those 3 will all stay. There will be a little bit that needs to be decided. Ultimately, it's going to kind of come down to Montrezl Harrell versus Danny Green, it seems like, for a final roster spot. We know that Trez already has the ACL injury, so the Sixers have not applied for the disabled players, or at least have not been approved for the disabled player exception yet. I'm curious if that happens. That might solve things, but we still know that there is the Harden whispers in a trade that could eventually happen with that. But for now, I want to talk about Kelly Oubre and what exactly he means to the Sixers. Let's start by taking a look at his stats here. So coming off the best year of his career with the Charlotte Hornets, who are, of course, one of the worst teams in the NBA, but Kelly Oubre more or less filled the role of the focal point of that team. Averaged 20.3 points per game last year, 5.2 rebounds, just 1.1 assists, which is kind of impressive considering what a high usage guy he is. He is not a guy that is a passer, not the most efficient player. When you look at these shooting splits, a career 33% three-point shooter, a career field goal percentage of 50.6%, which is not great there, and field goal percentage overall just 43.4%. So not the most efficient, but he is a guy that can fill it up. When you look at these stats, this wasn't a one-year flash in the pan, the 20.3 points per game. He got 15 points per game the year before, 15.4, 18.7, 16.9. He is a guy who can get buckets, who can get hot. Now, my ultimate feelings on Kelly Oubre, there will be days where we absolutely love him. There will be days where we absolutely hate him, that he can shoot you in or out of a game. I'm pretty happy with the signing just from the standpoint that, for starters, who knows what this roster is going to look like. The James Harden thing is going to be the overarching theme for this entire offseason and the thing that holds us back from really getting excited about this team. At least Kelly Oubre Jr. is something. That this is a splash of athleticism, the most traditional wing that these Sixers have had in several years now. That's the part that gets me the most excited. Is this guy is real deal 6'6", 6'7". He is a guy who, while it's sometimes more theoretical, he can defend. While he is a decent shooter, he can put up some bad shots. He's the ultimate no, yes kind of player where he takes bad shots, but sometimes he makes them. So this is something that adds a little juice to this team. He's a guy that when it is those random Tuesday nights against the Orlando Magic, you can count on him to go get you 20 points because he's capable of doing that, and it's good to have those types of players on your team. Now, do I think Kelly Oubre Jr. is a winning player? Probably not. I don't think he's a guy who serves a real role on a winning team, and we've kind of seen that by looking at this. He did play briefly for the Warriors. He played briefly for the Suns, but when you think of Kelly Oubre Jr., it is these years with the Washington Wizards. It is these years with the Charlotte Hornets, and there's definitely some correlation for how involved he is versus how successful the team is. But there's still a need for those innings-eating type players where you just rely on them to get the job done on a night in and night out basis. Sometimes these Sixers have been victim to not having enough of those when it is so reliant on guys like Joel Embiid, and then the nights when they're not there, the team really struggles. That's not a good thing. So that's something that Kelly Oubre will provide, is there will be nights where he can have his moment, he can step to center stage, and he can take advantage. Also a pretty good-looking guy. He always rakes in the tweets and comments like that, so maybe, who knows, your girlfriend wants to get a little more involved watching the game. Maybe that's a pro for the fellas out there. So a little bit of an entertainment value in that standpoint. He's a funky little player. Who knows what he's going to be on this team. Honestly, when I think down the depth chart, I'm not sure how much minutes I really can see him getting. When we look at the stats here, he's pretty accustomed to some a lot of time on the floor. 32.3 minutes per game last year, 26.3 the minutes before. 30.7, 34.5. These are a lot of minutes for a guy who essentially is a role player. And while he started from the most of his career, I don't think there's any world where that happens on these Sixers. I think it's much more likely that the starting lineup is, of course, Tyrese Maxey, James Harden if he's here, Joel Embiid, obviously. Tobias Harris is somehow still on this roster despite all the rumors for years now. And then that last spot is likely PJ Tucker if he's still here. If he is on the move, which I think is very possible based on the James Harden comments, and I think if there is a James Harden deal, Tucker is probably the most likely player attached to a deal, depending on, of course, the financials and all the other factors that go into it. If there's a need for another guy to start, it might be Paul Reed. That I think Paul Reed will be a guy who gets that look. We can't count out Kelly Oubre, that he is a guy who does provide a different aspect, and that is a good thing for this team. I guess the biggest thing is that we are now starting to shape up some form of roster, that this Sixers team is starting, you can squint and see what they would look like on the court, that we're getting closer to that. We are under 2 weeks now until training camp. That October 3rd, they will be back in action, starting out on the West Coast in Colorado, I believe is where the training camp are, out in the Midwest somewhere in the Nick Nurse town. I believe in Iowa, actually. I might have been wrong on that. But the bottom line is that Sixers basketball is coming back. So these types of moves, these works in between the margins are a big deal. That capitalizing, getting a 20-point per game score on a veteran's minimum is phenomenal value. So while Kelly Oubre is far from the perfect basketball player, and there will absolutely be nights where we are very frustrated by his decision-making with the ball, him going 1 for 12 and refusing to stop shooting. That will happen. But this is still a positive move because of the other things that he does bring, because of the other factors and elements they can add to this roster that weren't there before. He's a legitimate NBA player. He's a legitimate wing. He's a style of player that the Sixers haven't really had, and that is a good thing to add to this roster. And as we search through the James Harden uncertainty, if there are the nights where Harden is dogging it or not showing up or holding out altogether, Kelly Oubre is a guy who can step up and fill a high-usage role. So that is an awesome factor to have. Ultimately, we will see what the rest of the roster looks like, that the work is far from finished. The Harden thing is the biggest question, and Oubre's role will be probably impacted pretty strongly, but he knew what he was getting himself into when he signed that contract. And I also want to make a note that there were many reports that the Miami Heat were debating on signing Kelly Oubre if they signed Dame, or if they were effectively trading for Dame Lillard. I've never understood the correlation between that, if those two wanted to play together, or what the deal was. If that was just something that was going to empty the roster and he would be the next man up in the signing, that's likely the case. But regardless, something to note there, that there was a connection between the Dame Lillard and Kelly Oubre situation there. The bottom line is he will be in Philadelphia. Sixers basketball is right around the corner. I'm excited that I had some actual news to break, a topic on the money, something new, something happening, and a little change in outlook for the overall team looking forward. So thank you guys for tuning into this video. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on Kelly Oubre Jr. Overall, if I got to put a 1 to 10 grade on this, I'm probably giving this like a 7.7. I'm going to slap on the rating there. I'm okay with it. It does not win you a championship. I ultimately think on a successful team, he's probably not a rotation player. I think his habits are not quite enough to translate to winning. But I think when you consider all the factors of the Sixers right now, when you consider the value for the type of player he is, for the monetary hit that this brings on, this is a good move. This is the type of move that you're winning in the margins. It's a 1-year deal, no strings attached, and we'll see what Kelly Oubre can actually do on the court. Still 26 years old, a real deal wing. Let's see what he can make happen. Appreciate you once again, and we will talk next time here on Sixers Digest. Peace.